Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. How about a video for our blacksmith friends? If you're a blacksmith and you want to step into leathercraft, we've got the perfect project, and for so many reasons. We're going to make a pair of arm guards. This is a simple project that requires virtually no skill and very few tools. But also, a couple of points we want to address here. Well, for our blacksmiths, we need some good protection. How about a 7 to 8 ounce piece of suede? That's almost 1/8 of an inch thick. Hardware-wise, we don't want a lot of hardware because that's going to transfer heat. We don't want that. We've got an answer there, but we also have an answer to this. When we put on arm guards, we've got to do these one-handed. That can be a bit of a headache, but again there, we've got a great answer to that. This is going to be a great project. All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com or check below. We've got links there, going to take you straight to the website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's step over to our pattern table, get started. We've got a digital pic of our patterns. We'll look at those shortly, but we're going to talk about what we're doing first. It's going to help everything fall into place. Now we need 3 simple measurements to get started. So on our arm, I'm going to measure from a point about 1/2 inch above the bend in my wrist to about 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch below the bend in my elbow. For me, that's 9 inches. Next, we need a measurement from the center of our wrist around and back. For me, 7 inches. Same up here, 11 inches. But we're going to add 1/2 inch to both of those measurements so that when our arm guard comes back, it overlaps. We'll have no opening along there. Excellent protection. Now our closure, we're going to use what's called a Sam Browne or a button stud. Simply a screw back, but what we'll do is on the other end, we're going to punch a hole and then cut a slit. So when that sits down, easy on, we can do that with one hand, very strong, but again, easy off. Now on this end, we're going to add some oblongs here. Those are just there to keep that strap from moving around, again, making it easier to get these on and off. Now, if you don't have the oblong, we've got an alternative. The tool, best way to go, but we'll talk about that. All right, so over to our digital pics. On our main body, we basically have 3 horizontal lines. From our top edge, we're going to come down 1.5 inch. From the bottom edge, we're going to come up 1.5 inch. Then we're going to center a line between those. On the left side, we'll have our holes connecting the Sam Browne and the strap to the main body. And on the right side, we've got our oblongs. Those are centered on that line, 3/4 from the edge, 1/2 inch spread on those. Now, on our strapping, we're going to go 11.5, 10, and then 9. On each of these, we're going to come in 1/2 inch. On the other end, same thing. We're going to come in 1/2 inch, punch a hole, then we'll add our slits on that. So nothing difficult here. Let's step over to our main table, start cutting some leather. There are all kinds of ways to cut leather. We're going to talk about my favorite, but we need to bring this up because right here for our blacksmiths, this is an iconic leathercraft tool. It's called a round knife. And in fact, it's 3 tools in one. We can cut, we can skive, and we can edge with this. Now, the reason I bring this up is because for blacksmiths, y'all are typically very good at putting a good edge on a blade. I am not the same way. This needs to be sharp to be effective. So what I like to use is just a box knife. Now, in the intro, I mentioned very simple tools, no skills. We can always find this in our garage, not hard to work with. But the blades are cheap, they're sharp, they're easy to change out. But the best part, we've got a retractable blade. I've gotten in the habit of simply retracting that before I set it down. I don't have an open blade on my table. Now, as blacksmiths go, we haven't even started cutting leather. We already have 2 projects. We need a knife, and of course, we need a sheath. So on our leather, with our suede, we're going to go with an oddly thick piece of suede simply for the protection. But right here, this is a standard suede. These are typically a 3 to 4 ounce. We can get them lighter, but this is about a 1/16 of an inch thick. Now, Weaver, we got all kinds of gorgeous colors. The point there, make these your own, absolutely. These won't give us the same protection as this, but this is a common leather for welding smocks, welding gloves, aprons. Now, the piece we're going to cut from, this is called an apron split. And this is a 7 to 8 ounce suede. It's twice the thickness of our standard suede. Now, most suede's called a split because at the tannery, they're going to take a hide and they are literally going to split that horizontally. The piece that's going to come off the top, that's our top grain. The piece that comes off the back, that's where our suede comes from. So it's typically a less expensive piece of leather. Now, I don't typically like to mark with a pen, but suede is very hard to mark. But also at the same time, what I'd like to do is cut inside of that ink line. That's going to give me my most accurate cut. So let's mark this all the way around. Now, I say one up, one down. Now, we don't necessarily need to cut one up and one down, but we need to flop this when we mark for our holes because I want the end of my straps facing backwards. So let's see if I can remember to do that. Now, we need to mark this, and I need to apologize because I didn't catch this. Right here, we've got 3 holes. That can be confusing. What I did was I brought this in a little too far. So I just brought that back to 3/4 of an inch and 1/2 inch. So let's do that right now. How about no? And right in no on those 3. There we go. Now we've got a good pattern. So let's lay this back in. And I'm going to mark these 2 inside holes. And over here, the holes on the right side. Okay. Now, just to be safe, let's just go ahead and flip this over. We'll draw it in and we'll mark it. We'll have no mistakes. Good, we've got that and I can see my marks, okay, with a good straight edge. And I love our straight edge here. We've actually got this in a 12-inch and a 36-inch. What I like about this is when we press this down, our hand is actually above the cutting area. So if our blade jumps that edge, it's not going to stop in our finger. Now, new blade, sharp blade every time. One rule of thumb in leathercraft, suedes eat blades. It's another reason I like the box knife because I can quickly change that out. But if we've got a good sharp blade in this, look how easy that cuts. I almost feel like I didn't cut the leather. There we go. We've got a good, clean, straight cut. I'm going to cut the rest of the pieces out. Good, we've got that piece cut. Now, let's step over to what's called a corner knife. This is not a drive punch, it's a knife. And these make all the difference in the world in our projects. We've got them in multiple sizes. And right here, I'm using the 30mm. And there we are. We've got a perfect round corner. Now, the tool, the best way to go. But if we don't have the tool, or until we pick one up, what we can do, and it'd be best if we mark this, just a circle, say using a template, bottle cap, but we can just, with a series of small cuts, we could actually do a round corner that's not too bad, but again, tool, best way to go. So I'm going to hit all 4 corners on both pieces. Very nice. Those look good thus far. Let's reset here. Cut our strapping. We're going to need 2 each of our 3 straps. So we've got 11.5, 10, and 9. Now what we could do, we could bring our straight edge right to our edge. With our steel square, one of the most useful tools in my shop, we could measure over 3/4 of an inch. There we go. And with our knife, hold this down and cut. That's a very uncomfortable position. And if it's uncomfortable, we're not going to get a good cut. So how about we do this? So we need 6 at 3/4 of an inch. That's 4.5 inches. So what I'd like to do is let's come over just a little bit more than 5 inches. Yeah, maybe about right there. And now let's cut about 12, 13 inches long so we can trim off on both ends when we trim to size. So 36 down to 22. Good. Now I can see that cut easily. So now let's move over to 3/4 of an inch. Yeah. Now let's cut our 6 straps. And there we go. We've got our 6 straps. So I'm going to cut these out. Now we've got these, let's flip these around because again, this is the edge of our leather. And now with this, let's just cut to size. So again, 2 at 11.5, 2 at 10, and 2 at 9. Good, we've got those and not too much waste there. In fact, not waste, that's scrap. I will use that somewhere. Let's reset and mark these. All we have to do here is drop in a mark, 1/2 inch in from both ends. Easy enough there, okay. Let's step over to our punch table. Let's start with a tool called an oblong punch. So if we want to add a buckle to a strap or a belt, that's going to punch this oblong hole that will allow the prong to slip through. But we can also use this tool to create holes that straps will slide through. That's what we're going to do here. So on our 2 pieces, there we go. We've got 2 marks on this side and over here 2 marks on this side. Now we're using a 3/4 inch strap. So 3/4 inch oblong punch. Now our tendency is to punch this parallel to this edge. We don't want to do that because our strap's coming straight across. So let's punch that as perpendicular to this edge as we can. And what I tend to like to do is I'm going to punch the hole closest to me. Then I'll punch this second. Makes it a little easier for me to line that up. And we've got our oblongs in. Okay, so on this side, we've got holes marked. We're going to punch a smaller hole here because our strap's going to connect to this, to the main body with a sand brown. So notice right there, we've got a very small screw. I'd like a smaller hole. That's going to give us a better bite, more durability. So we're going to need a smaller hole on each of these 3 holes on our body and on one end of our strapping. Now right here, one of the best tools on the market. This is a good, solid revolving, a rotary punch. But notice too, you can hear that snap. It's a good quality tool, and we've got replaceable tubes on that, very affordable. But what we're going to do, let's step up to the best tool on the market, replaceable spring, anvil, and tubes. Now, for a smaller hole there, I'm going to come up to about the 3rd, maybe the 4th tube. And on our body, good, we've got our 3 holes there. Now, on our strapping, we're going to do the same thing on one end. Good, we've got those. Okay, on our body, there we go. We need to punch this side, same hole. Now, on the other end of our strap, these are ready to go. On the other end of our strap, the opposite end, now we need to look at our sand brown. Notice the throat there. Let's try to pick a tube on our revolving punch that's just a little bit larger than that. So actually, I'm going to come up to about the largest hole. The largest tube there, that should work nicely. On the opposite end, let's punch here. And this thick suede, this can be a little hard to punch, but there, we've got it. Okay, last step over here. We don't have to go this route, but we're going to look at a round end punch. We'll put a round end on each end. It's going to be a nice touch. So a round end punch. This is going to go on a strap that's not going to go through a buckle, as opposed to an English punch, which will go through a buckle. So again, multiple sizes here. I've got the 3/4 inch for 3/4 inch straps. Let's drop in a round end on each end. Very nice, we've got that. Now again, we don't have to have the tool. Tool, always best way to go, but we could simply just clip the corners on that until we bring the tool into our shop. All right, so all we have to do now is cut a slit, add our sand browns, we're done. On each of our straps, yeah, there we go, we've got a larger hole and a smaller hole. On the larger hole, let's take a knife and I'm going to cut a slit. Do my best to center this, and I want that about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit longer. But let's do this, let's cut, and then before we get to this hole, let's flip this around and let's just separate that piece. There we go, that looks good. What we're doing is trying to keep that knife from going into the other side of that punch. That's going to tear, all right? So the same thing to the other 5. And that's not too difficult. A couple of those could have been centered a little bit better. But a good point here, this is our poundo board. It's a cutting surface. This allows our blade to sink in so we get a better, more clean cut. But at the same time on these, we can press that and almost get right through that full slit without having to flip that around. Again, the blade can sink down into that. Okay, so over here, let's separate these out, long, medium, and short. Good, we've got that. Okay, so on our small sand browns, these are screw backs. What I'd like to do, let's take a little bit of our white glue, and this is just our Leathercraft cement. We can use a stronger glue, but this oddly, very strong. I'm going to drop that into the throat. Okay, so on this piece, let's go with our longest first. Let's bring our screw through on our strap. We're going to bring this around and attach that right there. And let's see, who's got the glue? Yeah, there we are. Okay, let's just screw that down. Now, it's got a screw back. We can use a screwdriver, but to me, it's almost a little easier just to crank that down. Good, that's solid. I'm going to do the same thing for the remaining 5 holes. We've got those, okay. Last step, let's take these straps through our oblongs. Now, with a little time, these are going to loosen up just a little bit. There we go. Okay, I'm going to do a costume change. Let's see how these fit. The only downside here, I don't have the forearms of a blacksmith, but we actually do have a left and a right here. So when we put this on, what I'd like to do is have my oblongs forward. Let's pull this up, overlap, and then drop that sand brown on. How easy is that? That's always such a problem, trying to put something on one-handed. And there we go. Those actually feel good on my arms. Feels like they give my arms a little stability. We got full coverage. We could certainly turn those around to where those sand browns are out, but very little metal there to transfer heat. Good looking pair of arm guards. We've got a simple yet useful Leathercraft project, and that's so typical of Leathercraft. We can make so many things that we use in our day-to-day world. Now for our blacksmith friends, I said rich hunting ground? Absolutely. Here's another good project idea. How about an apron? Make it yourself and make it your own. With your arm guards, hope you have a great time making them. Hope they fit well and look good. Good luck with your project.